Are your spark plugs slowly destroying your engine and you don't even know it? Most people think spark plugs are simple. They either work or they don't. You get a misfire, you replace them. But there's a maintenance mistake that millions of people are making right now that's silently degrading their engine, reducing fuel economy, and accumulating wear that won't show up as a problem until it's too late. After 20 years of diagnosing engines and analyzing what actually causes long-term damage, I'm going to show you exactly what this mistake is, why it matters more than you think, and how to prevent it. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about what spark plugs actually do, because most people don't understand this. A spark plug ignites the fuel-air mixture in the combustion chamber. That explosion drives the piston down, which creates the power that moves your car. That's a critical job. The spark plug has to fire reliably at the exact right moment, thousands of times per minute. When a spark plug starts to fail or isn't firing properly, the combustion process deteriorates. The fuel doesn't burn completely. The piston doesn't move as efficiently. Over time, that degradation compounds into real engine damage. Here's the mistake most people make. They ignore spark plug maintenance until something obviously goes wrong. They wait for a misfire code. They wait for the check engine light. They wait until they notice the car running rough. By the time they do something about it, the spark plugs have been firing poorly for thousands of miles. And during those thousands of miles, the engine has been running less efficiently, accumulating carbon deposits, and experiencing wear that could have been prevented. Let me give you specifics. When a spark plug starts to wear, the gap between the electrodes gets larger. That larger gap requires higher voltage to create the spark. Your ignition system has a maximum voltage it can produce, usually around 40,000 volts. As the gap gets bigger, eventually it exceeds what the ignition system can produce. The spark becomes weak, or it misfires entirely. A weak spark means incomplete combustion. Unburned fuel goes into the exhaust system. That fuel vaporizes as it travels through the catalytic converter, raising temperatures. The catalytic converter starts to degrade. Carbon deposits build up on the piston tops and inside the combustion chamber. Compression ratios change slightly. The engine becomes less efficient. Here's where it gets serious. Unburned fuel also dilutes your engine oil. When fuel enters the oil, it thins it out. The oil's viscosity drops. Film strength decreases. Bearing surfaces that depend on that protective oil film start to wear faster. You're not seeing this. There's no warning light. There's no sound. But inside your engine, things are degrading. Micrometers of bearing material are washing away. Piston rings are experiencing slightly more wear. Cylinder walls are seeing slightly more friction. Over 50,000 to 100,000 miles, that adds up to real engine damage. I had a customer with a 2015 Honda CR-V. At 85,000 miles, the check engine light came on for a random misfire. He ignored it for about 8,000 miles. The light would come and go. He figured it was a sensor issue or something that would fix itself. When he finally brought it in at 93,000 miles, we pulled the spark plugs. They were in terrible shape. The gap was excessive. The electrodes were eroded. One plug was firing so weakly it was barely contributing to combustion. We replaced the spark plugs. The misfire code went away, but I pulled an oil sample to check for fuel dilution. Sure enough, the oil had excess fuel content. Viscosity was down about 15% from specification. I recommended an oil change immediately to clear out the fuel-contaminated oil, but the damage was already done. We were looking at maybe 8,000 miles of operating on degraded spark plugs and contaminated oil. That's accelerated wear. I recommended he get his engine scoped, a bore scope inspection of the cylinders. When we looked inside, there was measurable carbon buildup on the piston tops, more than you'd normally see at 93,000 miles. The cylinder walls had slightly more wear than expected for that mileage. Nothing catastrophic yet, but the signs of accelerated wear were there. Now compare that to a different customer with a similar CR-V at nearly the same mileage. His spark plugs were replaced at the recommended interval, 60,000 miles. When I pulled them, they showed normal wear. The gap had opened from the original gap, but it was still within acceptable range. The electrodes were worn but not eroded. When I pulled an oil sample, there was no excess fuel dilution. The oil viscosity was normal. An engine scope showed minimal carbon buildup, just what you'd expect at that mileage. The engine looked 30,000 miles fresher inside. Same vehicle. Similar driving patterns. The only difference was that one owner replaced spark plugs on schedule and the other waited for a problem. The preventive maintenance owner's engine was in noticeably better condition. Here's what most people don't understand about spark plug intervals. Modern spark plugs last longer than older ones. Some premium spark plugs are rated for 100,000 miles, But that doesn't mean you should ignore them until they fail. A spark plug that's rated for 100,000 miles is still experiencing wear at 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 miles. It still works, but it's working less efficiently. That inefficiency compounds. Here's what your owner's manual probably recommends. Most vehicles recommend spark plug replacement somewhere between 30,000 and 100,000 miles, depending on the spark plug type. If your manual says 30,000, don't stretch it to 60,000 just because modern plugs last longer. The 30,000-mile recommendation exists because that's when efficiency starts noticeably degrading. If your manual says 100,000, you might be able to stretch it slightly, maybe to 110,000 or 120,000, but don't go double. The spark plugs are wearing, the gap is opening, the efficiency is declining. The real issue is that most people don't follow the schedule because they don't think about it. You don't feel spark plugs wearing. There's no warning light until they're already degraded. So you ignore them. You get a misfire code at 95,000 miles when they should have been replaced at 60,000, and you're surprised. Let me show you what happens inside an engine with worn spark plugs over extended periods. The combustion process becomes less precise. The air-fuel mixture burns less completely. Hydrocarbon emissions go up. Carbon monoxide goes up. Particulates go up. The catalytic converter works harder trying to clean up the mess. Unburned fuel passes through to the exhaust. That fuel condenses in the cat. The cat gets clogged. Now you have a clogged catalytic converter, which causes back pressure, which causes the engine to run hot. The oxygen sensors start giving inconsistent readings because the air-fuel mixture is unstable. You get more codes. The engine runs worse. Meanwhile, inside the cylinders, you've got weak combustion. Incomplete burns means some fuel stays on the piston tops as residue. That residue hardens into carbon. The carbon deposits create hotspots in the combustion chamber. Those hotspots can cause pre-detonation, the fuel igniting before the spark plug fires. That creates engine knock. Knock is destructive. It hammers the piston, the connecting rod, the bearings. Over time, that accumulates into real damage, and the oil dilution continues. Fuel in the oil thins it. Thin oil doesn't protect bearings properly. Bearings wear faster. Piston rings wear faster. Cylinder walls get more friction. All of this is preventable by replacing spark plugs on schedule. Here's exactly what you need to do. Check your owner's manual. Find the spark plug replacement interval. It's probably somewhere between 30,000 and 100,000 miles. Circle that number. When you're within 2,000 miles of it, schedule a replacement. Don't wait for a code. Don't wait for a misfire. Do it preventively. When you replace them, use the correct spark plug type for your engine. The manual specifies this. Don't use a cheaper plug thinking you're saving money. Use the recommended type. If the manual says iridium, use iridium. If it says platinum, use platinum. These materials exist because they perform better in your specific engine. Also, consider the condition of your ignition coils when you replace spark plugs. Ignition coils fire the spark plugs. If a coil is weak, it won't produce enough voltage, and even a new spark plug won't fire properly. Some shops will test coils when they replace plugs. Make sure they do, or ask about it specifically. Here's another mistake people make. They replace spark plugs but ignore other maintenance. Spark plugs work as part of a system. If your fuel injectors are dirty, they create a poor fuel spray. If your air filter is clogged, you get incorrect air-fuel ratios. If your fuel pressure regulator is failing, pressure is inconsistent. All of these cause the engine to run less efficiently and put extra stress on the spark plugs. When you replace spark plugs on schedule, it's a good time to also check your fuel filter, air filter, and maybe do a fuel system cleaning. These all support each other. Take care of one system, think about the others. I had a customer replace his spark plugs at 60,000 miles but didn't replace his air filter. The air filter was so clogged that it was restricting airflow. The engine compensated by running rich, using more fuel than it should. The new spark plugs had to work harder to ignite that excessive fuel. By 85,000 miles, the new plugs were already showing wear from working too hard. A $20 air filter would have prevented that accelerated wear on a $100 spark plug set. Here's the bottom line. Spark plugs are a small maintenance item that prevents big problems. Replacing them on schedule, not early, not late, but on schedule, keeps your engine running efficiently and prevents the kind of degradation that accumulates into serious wear. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. It's preventive maintenance. But it's critical. If you're overdue for spark plugs, get them replaced. If you're at the interval, schedule them. If you're approaching the interval, do it before problems start. The cost of replacing spark plugs on schedule is a fraction of the cost of repairing an engine that suffered from years of running on degraded plugs. What's your spark plug situation? When were your plugs last replaced? Are you due or are you overdue? Drop a comment with your vehicle and your spark plug history. I want to hear from people who've actually experienced misfire issues or had to deal with the consequences of neglecting spark plug maintenance. And if this explained why spark plugs matter more than most people think, hit that like button. Next week, I'm breaking down the fuel system maintenance that nobody does but everybody should, and how neglecting it can cost you thousands in repairs. You probably don't even know this system needs attention. If you're not subscribed, hit that button now. Drop a comment. I respond to everyone. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.